Hello, I'm Marc Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have Anthony Young, the CEO of Bridewell, in the studio in London. How are we doing, Anthony?
I'm very good, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me along.
No, thank you for coming along. And you've come from Reading today, is that where?
Yes, yeah. Well, I was Reading and then been in the London office for a bit and then straight over here.
Nice. Now, I think we have a Channel Chat first today because you are the first recruiter, or let's call you an ex-recruiter.
Ex-recruiter, yeah.
That is actually in the studio. But give me a bit about that background, because you started as a consultant, but you ended up moving into recruitment. So tell the listeners how it happened.
Yeah, so I've always worked in and around cybersecurity. So from about 16, I worked part-time for a security consultancy and then went into that full-time. After doing a few years full-time, working mainly around sort of governance, risk and compliance consulting, decided I wanted to find a new role. So went to a recruitment company that's focused on corporate governance recruitment. Got chatting to the recruiter there, and somehow they convinced me to join them and set up their cybersecurity contract recruitment division. So I went in to try and find a security job and ended up with a recruitment job doing contract recruitment. But yeah, thought it could be a good way for me. I always knew I wanted to set up my own security business. So I thought it was a good way of me to build up relationships with CIOs, CTOs, CISOs, do it for about a year, set up my own business, but actually really enjoyed recruitment. So I was like, I really enjoyed like listening to people's problems. You know, a lot of like CISOs were coming to me sort of with their security requirements, hadn't been able to find a consultancy to do the work, was struggling with finding permanent resource, couldn't find the right sort of contractors. So just working with them, putting in teams to deliver the work, and just built a reputation for turning things around really quickly, providing high quality. And yeah, just really enjoyed it.
You mentioned there always plans to maybe start your own business. Did you ever think, let's start a recruitment business? Little barriers to entry, easy to start.
Just got a phone and a computer, that's all you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was that even a possibility?
To be honest, I'd done about 5 years recruitment by the time I set up Bridewell. And for me, the contract recruitment market had really shifted. So I was the early stages, working with CISOs, understanding problems, finding solutions, driving the teams to deliver it. By the end of it, it was everything's through Alexander Mann or Hayes, everything through a portal. You can't speak to the CISO because, God forbid, you actually understand what they want to do. It's just put a CV through on a portal and keyword searching, and it added zero value. And I was like, if this is the way recruitment's going, that's not it for me.
Do you know what? That is my pet hate. As soon as the company say either put it on the portal or we can't speak to the hiring manager, I've checked out. I'm just not interested.
But you can't build the context.
It's just really frustrating.
You don't understand. You know, it's spray and pray, isn't it? It's just you're just chucking CVs through, and you can't add value. And you know, what's the point in paying a recruiter if they can't add value? And so yeah, that's why going back into consulting. That gave the value that I wanted for the companies I was working with.
Now, as a fellow recruiter, Anthony, you must have some hilarious stories, because I've got loads of hilarious stories, but, there must be one that stands out in your recruiting career. You think, I can't believe that happened.
Well, there's a few. I mean, there's obviously the people that kick off when they get told no for various roles and can't believe that they've been turned down for it. And there was one that I interviewed for a role, and they just started going into their party lifestyle, I suppose, and were saying, I want a company where I can go out partying till like 2 a.m, doing various drugs and bits and pieces, and just all there. And I was like, I'm not really sure that the cybersecurity community is going to be the right sort of area for you to be focusing on, maybe sort of going into nightclubs, that sort of area. But it was very open, very honest in terms of what they're wanting in their party lifestyle. But it wasn't quite the first sort of pre-interview I was expecting for someone going into a security role. No,
absolutely. So let's talk about your career after that. So you decided to start Bridewell. Why? Why did you do it?
So it was really, I was getting frustrated with that contract recruitment piece. By then, 5 years of doing recruitment, I'd built up a fantastic network of CISOs through the UK. And I just started sort of saying, look, this frustration around the contract recruitment market, and if I switched to setting up a consultancy, doing pretty much what I was doing before, but delivering everything under defined statements of work, it's very much outcome focused, project managing it, driving it through, competing with some of the consultancies, would they be open for that? And a few of the clients I was working with said that they would support that move. So moved into there, started Bridewell, had a first client up within the first couple of weeks. And what started as delivering outcome-based security work, again, generally using contractors to start with, because that's what I knew. As the projects got longer, started to replace those with permanent staff within the business. And then over time built up a reputation again for delivering what we said we'd do, delivering on time, delivering high quality. And then being asked, well, could we do other areas like penetration testing? So testing people's security systems, like security testing, hacking into those, and then into things like data privacy and managed security services. And then not before long, we were doing full end-to-end cybersecurity services. And we'd gone from being mainly contractor driven to mainly permanent staff. So now we've got very few contractors through the whole business and got over 330 permanent members of staff across the UK and in the US.
It's a lot.
So it's grown well.
It's a lot. No, let's talk about those first couple of years, Anthony, because what was it that surprised you maybe most about running a business? Because this was your first business you'd run.
Yeah, well, actually, it wasn't the first business I'd run. I'd run a few others sort of growing up, but I'd run a pub, was one of the ones that I thought was going to be, I was going to start the next Weatherspoons in my head. And,
really? Okay, interesting.
That didn't quite go to plan, and I lost quite a lot of money. Thought I'd never do the pub trade and various bits and pieces again. So that one went wrong. Very much learned a lesson of don't focus on revenue, need to focus on profit. Didn't make much profit down that pub trade. So that was the first business I'd done. But then going into this one, it's obviously balancing lots of different hats. Early days, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the sales, you're doing the delivery, you're doing the finances. You've got to manage all the different areas of the business, and then it's bringing the right people in around you to support. And those first permanent hires are really difficult and really important to come into the business. And having people to be able to support with areas such as finances and sales, and be able to drive the delivery of different projects and make sure that they're all being delivered on time and budget and so on. You can make a lot of mistakes in those early years in terms of getting those hires right, or holding out too long and trying to do everything yourself, and then you're basically becoming a bottleneck yourself to the different areas. So it's getting that scalability right.
When do you know when to hire? What's the trigger in your head? Because early doors, you're doing everything, but you've got to be careful, because otherwise, if you don't hire and relieve yourself, you end up just working for yourself as your own employee.
Early years, working 7 days a week, ridiculous hours, and you just thought, well, rather than hire somebody, you just keep working more hours, and suddenly you're running out of hours, you're really, really tired, and then you've got to learn, right, how do I actually start to delegate? How do I bring people in? And that's a difficult early lesson, doing that delegation, trusting people and bringing it through. But when you get it right, you suddenly feel this sense of relief of, why didn't I do that sooner? But suddenly I've now got an additional maybe 24 hours or something, which I can do something else, which is more relevant or a better use of my time going forward. So it was definitely tricky, but usually it was to the point where I was just be at breaking point of just going, I've got no more hours left. I need to bring someone in to do this. And you go through and go, what's important for me to keep, and what actually is it better if someone else does? It's going to take me, a few hours or a few days just to run through everything with them, and then they can take that off my plate. So it's just working out how you can move those things around, really.
Let's fast forward to today. Bridewell is now one of the largest independent cyber services business out there. What do you think you do differently to other organisations in a similar space?
We know our target market. We know where we do well. We know how to win within those markets. So Bridewell as an organisation, we focus on critical infrastructure. So that's like energy companies, water companies, financial services. So anywhere that if there was a successful cyber attack could lead to like loss of life or damage to the economy. So very much the top end of cyber. We invest heavily in terms of the skills within the business. Like everyone within the business has got a dedicated training budget and is driving forward their own personal development. We're always pushing the company forward as well in terms of how we can sort of stay ahead of the threats. Our mantra from the very early days was, it was just like, if someone else has got a better way of doing things, we'll take that on board and do it. We always want to evolve as a business because the threats are always evolving. It's a hugely fast-paced environment, and we just can't sort of stand still. So we're constantly evolving the business. We're the most assured business with the National Cybersecurity Centre, so we're in all the NCSC schemes. So that's the NCSC basically assure businesses around work in the consultancy space and penetration testing and so on. So we're on all those schemes, which provides that sort of level assurance to critical infrastructure organisations, government organisations around the quality of the work. Because what you've seen in a fast developing area such as cybersecurity is you get lots of people go, oh, there's lots of money in cybersecurity, I'm going to set up a company doing that. And they've got no experience, they've got no skills, they're trying to develop the business from, say, an IT MSSP. And it can be challenging for a business to know, what am I buying? It's like the cowboy builder scenario. If you've got two builders, how do you know which one actually knows what they're doing? So by focusing on the accreditations, the development, the training, within our industry, people go, right, if I'm buying Bridewell, I know I'm getting that quality coming through. It may come at a premium price point. We're usually at the higher price bracket, but we will be providing that quality service going forward.
You've mentioned there that cowboy analogy. How do you know if you're looking at 2 or 3 service providers in security, who is that cowboy and how can you tell which one to use?
Well, a lot of it is around things like those accreditations. Right. You've got to be staying on top of things in the security space. And if someone's coming along saying I'm a cybersecurity expert and they've not invested anything in terms of their development, their training, or their company's accreditations, I would sort of stay well clear of that.
Warning sign.
Yeah, warning sign. They may say, oh, I've done some security or a bit of security within some work they did on an IT project or something like that. But I just would stay away from anyone who hasn't really invested in terms of the different areas of security that you would expect.
I like to have a little scour on people's LinkedIn, Anthony, when I look at people.
Stalking.
Stalking. Yeah. And I had a look at yours, and it mentioned that 15% of your team are made from ex-veterans from the armed forces.
Yeah.
Why is that a thing for you?
So there's 2 parts to that, which I'm sort of really proud of, and the reason why. So first of all, I grew up within the armed forces. My father was a brigadier in the army, and the father before him was a brigadier. So I'm the first person in hundreds of years in our family who haven't gone into the armed forces.
You've broken the tradition.
I have broken the tradition. At the time, my father didn't talk to me for a little while. I was like, right, what are you doing? But I sort of feel like within the cybersecurity space, you're still doing that piece to protect the country, and particularly focusing in areas such as sort of critical infrastructure. I take that very, very seriously. But also just within terms of veterans, the skills that are transferable from the armed forces for us are brilliant in terms of being able to deal with pressure, being able to project manage. We've got people with good technical skills that coming out of the armed forces as well. So there's lots of different routes from, say, sort of signals, from intelligence corps, the RAF coming into the business. And once you also get a bit of reputation of being a good employer for people from the armed forces, then you find that more and more are joining. And again, because of the amount we invest in terms of training and development, we can cross-skill. We've also got an academy, which is an 18-month program. So we can actually take people with a passion for sort of cybersecurity or want to get into that area, but we can really train and develop them in the core sort of areas of that and give the security badges and so on that are needed to move into either security operations or threat intelligence or pen testing or different areas of security going forward.
As I was looking through your LinkedIn, Anthony, I was noticing all these awards that you were mentioning, multiple awards actually.
We have won a few.
Loads of stuff.
We've won a few.
There was quite a lot on there. One of them, ranked 5th in the UK for best workplace in a tech list. The question for you is, why do you feel that's important for the business, and does it actually make a difference to the culture that you're trying to breed?
Everything for us is around the quality of the people, the culture. It's a really good team-based environment, and we're always focusing on it, and we like to shout out about the quality of the culture within the business. And everyone in the business is proud of what we stand for as a company, the companies that we work with, the support, the values of the business, and to be able to sort of have that independent view of someone coming in and saying, what, this is a great place to work, and we've surveyed your staff and they're all saying this is a fantastic place to work, because we're recruiting so many people per year that when you're trying to compete against other companies within the cybersecurity space, if it gives us that extra 10% chance of out-competing somebody else, then we want to be have that extra opportunity, because we do have our own internal recruitment team. We don't make people put everything through a portal, but we do have our own internal recruitment team, and they're really busy, and we're always bringing people in through lots of different areas, and it is a competitive area, the cybersecurity space. And I do believe we've got a fantastic culture and a brilliant place for people to come work, develop, learn. And we have very low sort of churn rate on staff, and it's something I'm really proud of, and everyone in the business is proud of. So it's good to be able to sort of shout about it.
Do you think it helps with talent attraction? People actually knowing about you, looking up?
100%, yeah. So it's one of those areas that if a company cares about its culture, it wants to shout about it's got a good culture. If a company doesn't really care about its people, it wants to sort of sweep it under the carpet and not really talk about it. It's like, well, our people make the business what it is, and it can be really stressful at times, the cybersecurity space. If you think about, say, our security operations center, particularly, again, if we're monitoring systems for critical infrastructure organizations, and if something goes wrong in that space, as I said, it could be catastrophic. So people understand what is important and the work and the purpose of the work that they're doing, and we've got to make sure that doesn't cripple them as well at the same time. So you've got to have that bit of balance between fun and everything else as well.
Anthony, when I talk to a lot of companies, they always talk about maybe we'll go to America. Maybe we'll try and conquer America. Yeah. And you are expanding into America, into the US. Yeah. How's that going? And what's the biggest challenge of actually trying to go into a massive market like that?
Yeah, so it's been like being a startup. Again, we've been looking at it over the last sort of 3 years. So it's taken me back to the roots of Bridewell UK. A little bit of trial and error, like what works. We originally went over with a UK client we were working with that was doing work in the US, and they asked us to support them over there. So that sort of de-risked the move to the US at the time. It was like, right, okay, we're on the ground now. How do we expand across the US? And we tried a few different markets, and then with our references from the UK, we're focusing very much around the transport market and sort of energy market and water market over there. So we've gone sort of over here, we've got sort of 7 C&I markets that we're looking at, and over in the US, we've sort of started with 1, and we're just starting to expand into sort of 2 or 3 different C&I markets. So very vertical focused, and then sort of looking at it a bit state by state as well. So where we're building up resources in different sort of states, we're starting to get that same reputation we had in the UK around quality, delivering the work, and we've got a bit of a mix between sort of US and UK resources over there. And where we can support from the UK, we try, but we're finding as a bit of a challenge that a lot of the customers want people on site 2 or 3 days a week. So we do need that sort of US resource to drive that through. Early days, I thought we could do 90% of it support from the UK, because the cost of staff in the US is about 2.5 times what we pay in the UK. So obviously, if we could do it from the UK, it's a lot cheaper for us. So it's expensive over there.
What would you say is the sort of the biggest threat right now in the market? And that could be big global players or the agile startup or something else. Where do you think the threat is coming from?
What threat to us as a business?
Yeah, so you as a business.
I think we've always got to sort of stay on our game. Obviously, there's this big focus around AI and automation, and a lot of people are thinking, right, will there be this new AI security product that basically puts everyone out of work within the security space? But I think there's always going to be this balance between automation, AI, and people, and I think AI can help people do the job. I mean, we're seeing that the speed and the amount of attacks that we're dealing with across our customer base has pretty much doubled in the last 12 months. So where we can use AI and automation to be able to deal with more of that noise and to provide more context to our staff on the ground who are working within our security operations center and that side, then that's a great benefit for the team. But yeah, I mean, there's always the chance that another Bridewell can come through. You know, we came from nowhere sort of 13 years ago to be one of the largest in the UK, and we've always got to keep an eye out and make sure we don't become complacent as a business, and we stay true to our values, true to what our purpose of what we're doing, and don't forget that really. But we're sort of challenging a lot of the bigger players like your Accentures and the Big Four and your IBMs and your NCCs, that sort of thing. Those are the main ones we're sort of challenging these days in the market, and we've got to keep on our toes to be able to do it. So.
Absolutely. The channel always talks about partnerships and also about co-opetition, potentially working with competitors if you haven't got the resources or the skill set internally. Does Bridewell have co-opetition? Do you actually partner with other competing companies, and if so, why, or do you naturally just compete?
So historically, we've always been very direct sales, deliver everything ourselves, drive that sort of quality. Earlier this year, though, we took new investment from private equity. So we got Oakley Capital, Eurazeo, and Sagard as new investors in the business. And as part of that, we've created a partnership with a company called Eye Tracing in France. So it's been really good, actually, just building that partnership with Eye Tracing and seeing how we can support each other in terms of international expansion, tap into their knowledge and experience. They've got a lot of great experience of dealing with huge global enterprises, sort of up to 100,000 type people, whereas we've got a lot more experience around sort of mid-market organizations, and being able to tap into their experience, how they work, and collaborate on some international projects has been great within that space. But historically, because of the types of companies that we've worked with, and you've got security clearances, you need to know who's working on what. We've kept it quite close knit in terms of the companies that we've worked with. But I suppose areas that we have worked more from a sort of a channel sort of partnership has been more around different technologies. So that's from a people perspective, but on a technology basis, we work very closely with Microsoft.
Yeah.
So our security operations center is all driven, or majority of it's driven off Microsoft technologies like Microsoft Sentinel and Defender. So we've built a really good close working relationship with Microsoft across the UK and also in the US. Been building relationships with other areas such as Google and Splunk and other security vendors in that space as well. And that's where we can win better together, when you've got that partnership between the technology vendors and sort of yourself as an organisation.
It's obvious you've probably built a strong team behind you, and it sounds like you've got a great culture. As being an ex-recruiter, you've mentioned about you've got an internal recruitment team. Do you get involved in yourself? Do you actually suddenly think, I'd like to get involved in these hires myself, or do you what's your view on recruitment yourself? Because do you use external recruiters yourself? Do you think it's worth?
So we use external recruiters for difficult to find roles, and we always say, look, we've got to keep a good relationship with external recruiters because the market ebbs and flows. We were discussing this earlier. Market ebbs and flows, and at the moment, it's a great market for us as a business to be able to find people. It's very candidate rich, but it can switch around very, very quickly to then being very competitive. So we've got to keep good relationships with recruiters for when the market switches around. Do I still get involved with recruitment? No, I'm very interested in terms of what's going on in internal recruitment, what systems, how we're advertising, how we're driving, ensuring that we're feeding back to candidates. Because it does still happen with the volume where somebody messages and said they haven't had any feedback on an interview. I'm like, look, we've got to be feeding back into candidates. We've got to be providing that life cycle through, because you don't want to get a reputation in the market of as an organisation. It doesn't get back to people. So always trying to just make sure we're doing the right things that you expect from a recruitment process. But I did place something. I did place someone the other day.
God,
so yeah,
you placed someone yourself.
It was the first one I'd done in about 13 years, but it was a company I was doing some work with, and they were asking for some help, and I was like, I know exactly the person for that job, and put them across and got a little fee out of it. So.
Oh wow! Back to your roots. Love
back
it.
To roots,
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And see, as the culture evolves, as you've got bigger, are you able to maintain that sort of small company feel? Because there's you starting it 13 years ago. You've just said 330 odd people.
Yeah.
How's the culture evolved?
It has evolved, and it's probably one of the things we constantly get feedback of. The culture's changing. It's not what it used to be, and but I say it has to evolve. You go through different life cycles as you're a growing business, and you can't keep the same culture you had when 10 people, when you're 50 people versus 100 people versus 300 people. So early days, obviously, it was like, 10 people, you're always in the office, maybe go to the pub after work, regularly. You knew everyone's families and everything else like that. And it was more of a family community and sort of feel. And then as it gets bigger, not everyone's always in the office. And then us as a business, we would have like quarterly meetups where we bring everyone together once a quarter. I would do strategy work in the day. And then we'd, have a culture of going out in the evening. And then you get larger again, and you're like, well, you're taking too much time planning these quarterly meetups because there's so many people, and the expenses of people traveling from all over the country gets too crippling. So now we have an annual conference, which we do over 2 days once a year. But it's, again, still keeping a lot of the roots of the connection, bringing people together. We're always looking at how we can drive community. That has never changed in the business. We just have to evolve it as we go through. And we've always focused on, doing the right thing for each other, being one team, supportive of each other, and always delivering high quality, going above and beyond for the client. That's never changed. And, we make sure that everyone in the business, we celebrate our values, and it gets called out. All of our awards are all around it. All the performance reviews are around it. And it's entrenched, in the business. It's not a business where we, just talk about the values, but don't live and breathe them. We live and breathe them every day to make sure that we're hiring the right people and then holding people to account.
What about you, Anthony? How have you evolved?
How have I evolved?
You've gone from a hands-on consultant to a CEO of a big company. Yeah. You must have had to evolve yourself.
Yeah, there's not a day which you're not learning, testing yourself. I learn through doing. So, I chuck myself into difficult situations and have put myself in various different types of communities, I would say. So in terms of, being around other sort of CEOs or people who founded businesses. So now I'm in the private equity world. I spend a lot of time at networking events with other private equity CEOs and so on, and dinners and various. And I sort of just... For me, I immerse myself in whatever area I have to be to learn off other people, ask questions, make mistakes as you're going through, and you're not going to get everything right, but you need to keep pushing yourself. And I would say that I've probably felt uncomfortable pretty much every year since I started the business, and it gets as it gets bigger, there's more responsibility for people, their families, and everything else like that. But you got your North Star of you're making a difference within the market that you're working in, and you're proud of the feedback that you get, and you're constantly how do you keep that at the heart of everything that you're doing whilst expanding it. And I've always said that I'll keep doing this as long as I'm enjoying it, because it's great fun when you found something that you enjoy, that you can live and breathe, and you don't sort of just get out of bed and go, why am I doing this? But yeah, it's great working with the people that we work with and the customers that we work with, and creates a great area to sort of be and develop.
You mentioned earlier about when you first started working 7 days a week, ridiculous hours, lots of pressure. You could be hiring, but you end up maybe doing it yourself. Founders often, and I've struggled with this with myself, founders often struggle with maybe burnout, pressure, wearing every hat. How have you managed the personal side of leading Bridewell and balancing that?
I suppose a few different ways for this. One, I've got a fantastic wife who is very understanding, and she knows that if I just say, look, I've just got to take myself away, I just sort of go away and I'll work. Earlier days, not so much now because I've had so many injuries, I used to do a lot of running, and that used to be a major de-stressor for me. I could just go out running for like hours and just clear my head and then come back having exhausted it. Unfortunately, I've struggled more since I started to get injuries in my legs, and I'm like, right, okay, cycling and various other things, but nothing's been quite the same since running, really, for me. I find it's a blend. It's like I could be working, whilst I'm on holiday potentially, and I don't see that as a problem. But also, if I'm in the week and I just want to take some time out, spend some time with the kids, then I'll take some time out. It's about driving the outcomes that we're trying to do as a business. And I don't really have, I work Monday to Friday and then I got the weekend off. Everything's just a bit of a blend between work and personal life. And I'll take some downtime if I need to take some downtime, or I accelerate the amount of time that I need to work if I need to.
You could self-regulate.
Self-regulate. And I'm very sort of structured in terms of what I do, and just give myself the right tools to be able to early days, it was a lot about lists and just making sure I knew what was the highest priority, make sure focusing on the right sort of tasks. So there's lots of different sort of tools that you do to keep yourself motivated and driven and focusing on the right priorities.
Anthony, if you got sacked tomorrow, which can't happen really, but
maybe it could.
Maybe they just got sick of you and they get rid of you, or maybe you
can replace me.
Exactly. I'll find a good replacement for you. Or if you sold the business, or maybe if you walked away, you thought, do you know what, I've had enough. What would you do next?
Good question. My wife said to me that I will just never slow down. So I'll probably take about 2 weeks off and then come up with the next idea, I think. But I don't know. I would quite like to maybe do some sort of social enterprise. One of my close friends from university, we've talked about different social enterprises and things that we may sort of do, try and give more back in terms of society in that space. Charity work. I think, for me, giving back more in the community would be the next phase of what I would like to do and try and focus on, but haven't had too much more thought on it other than a couple of conversations with some friends in the pub.
You know what? I normally find when someone, a CEO or an owner sort of talks about an exit, they think, we're going to get an exit. They get an exit and then they wish they never sold it. They think, I had what I wanted. Why did I do? They lost their purpose almost. They end up sort of wanting what they had before. It's a difficult one, isn't it?
And it is difficult. And as I said, I suppose early days in the business, you've got this plan in your head of what you're trying to create and where you're trying to get it to. And every time you complete that plan, you've got to remotivate yourself and focus on the next plan. And I used to sometimes compare it to sort of, when I was doing my marathon running and so on, you had your plan of, this is how I'm going to do the marathon, and this is how, and you break it all down into small steps of all your training, your hill training, your sprints and everything else like that. And you get there and then you have to set another goal because otherwise you're just like, what's next? And it's the same with business, is you set your 5-year plan and then now I actually look at a 15-year plan and I break it down into 5-year steps.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So 15 years.
15 years is sort of where I start to look. And obviously the goal in 15 years is very, very woolly. It's like, it'll be in these countries, it'll be this sort of revenue, this sort of profitability. And then it gets into more detail when you're at the 5-year, and then even more detail in the 12 months and so on. But it's all around that, break it all into steps and have a clear view of where you're going. Because we're really open book as a business with everybody in the company as well. So every month we talk about how the company's performing, how we're delivering against plan, what's working, what's not working, all of the company's finances. And that was all driven from the very early days when people had taken a bit of a punt in terms of joining Bridewell, and a lot of them were like, well, what happens if the business runs out of money, or there's not enough business there and we could lose our jobs? And I just sort of said, early days, I'll be completely open book with you. You'll see how we're doing in terms of sales, you'll see how we're doing in terms of our profits, and I'll just go through it with you every single month. And we've done that every month for 13 years, and everyone in the business knows how we're doing, the good and the bad.
Good, bad and the ugly.
But it was great through COVID because it was already built into the business, so there was this transparency there, and everybody got to understand how the business was doing, and there wasn't that nervousness of suddenly, are we going to be out of a job? Because we could talk about the sales cycles, we could talk about how much cash we had in reserve and so on. So, we've just sort of kept that going.
I have a closing tradition, Anthony. I always ask this last question, and I always tell the guest, don't sit on the fence and don't tell me your own company. You can't tell me how great your company is.
You already know that.
You've already told me that. Yeah. So who do you think, and it could be a vendor, it could be a reseller, it could be an MSP, it could be a distributor, it could be a competitor. Who do you think is the one to watch? Who's going to do well in 2026?
I think the ones to watch in the security space, because they're just investing so much money and as I said, a lot is going to be around AI and automation. Is this sort of Google-Microsoft battle? So Microsoft have been leading the way in the security space for the last few years. They've invested billions in this space. But Google really want to be in the fight, and they've been investing a hell of a lot around the sort of the AI and automation piece, and they really want to take the fight to Microsoft. And we're seeing Google take a bit more market share in the UK at the moment. And I think it's going to be an interesting one, because they're both investing so much money in both the AI aspects and the security aspects. It will still need service providers like us to be able to deliver and manage and everything else. But it'll be interesting to see if Google start to win some of that, and it will always be, I think, one pushing ahead of the other. And it will be interesting to see how it pans out.
Anthony, you've been a great guest. Thanks very much for your time.
No, thank you very much, Mark.